If you need some help with graphing these parabolas from the standard form, this is the assignment, part of the assignment from page 356. I'm going to do problems 7 and 8. So for number 7, if we move the 4 over, if you do it that way, you no longer use the opposite of each one for the vertex. It's opposite and same. So if you want to leave it the way it was written, I'm not even really sure why I did that. So x minus 4, y plus 2 quantity squared. So your vertex is labeled x and then y, of course. So your vertex is at 4, negative 2. If you're going to do it this way, you do opposite and opposite. Of course, the number in front of the parentheses is the 4d, so we need to find d next. So 1 equals 1 over 4d, and of course you can cross multiply or you can just figure it out. You get 4d equals 1, so d equals 1/4. Now if it's easier for you to just call it 0.25, then call it 0.25. So we have an x and a y squared, so that means it opens left or right. And because d is positive, that means it opens to the right. So some of this other stuff we do from the graph. So I'm going to put the vertex on here. And that's why I have graph paper, because sometimes it is a little bit easier to make sure it's lined up correctly. And so since it opens to the right, the focus is 1/4 or 0.25 to the right. So the coordinates for the focus would be 4.25, negative 2. The directrix is 0.25 on the other side. So there's the directrix. So the equation of the directrix is that it touches the x-axis at 3 3/4 or 3.75 if you'd rather have a decimal. And of course the axis of symmetry is the line that connects all these. Make sure it is a line. And that touches the y-axis at negative 2. Now I realize that the issue would then of course be the other 2 points. If you do not want to do the arithmetic, then solve for y and put it in the calculator. So if you choose to solve for y, then you're going to have x minus 4, and then on this side we have y plus 2. You have to take the square root, put the plus or minus in front of the square root, and then put the 2 on the other side. So this is what you'd have to type into the calculator. Y sub 1 is equal to negative 2 plus radical x minus 4, and y sub 2 is negative 2 minus the square root of x minus 4, and that will generate an infinite amount of points. If you don't care to do it that way, then you're going to have to plug in a value for x. I suggest you pick a value for x that creates a perfect square. Now for this one I think it's easy. I suggested using the x value of your focus. Well, the x value of your focus is awful, 4.25. You can certainly use that, but 0.25 is awful small and I wouldn't use it. So what I'm thinking is, how can I get a perfect square on this side? Something that when I take the square root of is a whole number. Well, if I put a 5 in there for x, I'm going to get 1. And I can take the square root of 1 pretty easily. So I'm going to use x equals 5. Remember, you got to keep track of that so that you remember what your x value is for your point. So we get 1 equals y plus 2 quantity squared. Take the square root. So plus or minus 1 is equal to y plus 2. And then subtract the 2. So negative 2 plus or minus 1 is equal to y. So negative 2 plus 1, that's negative 1. And negative 2 minus 1, that's negative 3. These are your y values. So my points will be, I got writing everywhere here, 5, negative 1, and 5, negative 3. Of course, you could have avoided all of that by just putting it into the calculator. But either way, however you get these points, They need to be on the graph. So now that you have a perfect idea as what the width is like, you can draw the graph. So for problem number 8, it's a little bit easier because it's easier to put into the calculator. It's very easy to solve for y here. But we have a little bit more complicated d. That's all right. So remember, the first step is to find the vertex. Remember, you go x then y, opposite, opposite. So 3, -3. If your vertex wrong, of course, that's going to affect everything. Now we're going to find the value of d. 1/3 is equal to 1 over 4d. So this one maybe not be as intuitive for you because 3 and 4 are not multiples of each other. So cross multiply 4d equals 3. So d equals 3/4, which you could call 0.75 if you'd like. So in this case we have y equals x squared, which means it's up or down. And because the d is positive, this thing is going to point up. So I'm going to put my vertex on here. And the value of d is 3/4. So up 3/4 is my focus. Down 3/4 is the directrix. So the focus, the coordinates are over 3, down 2 1/4. I don't have to go all the way quite down to 3. So that's why it's 2 1/4, 2.25. The directrix, get an equation of a line that touches the y-axis at -3 3/4, almost to 4. And the axis is this line right here. Looks like it touches the x-axis at 3. X equals 3. Now the issue is finding 2 more points. We'll just put it in the calculator. When you put it in the calculator, you put in y equals 1/3 times the quantity of x minus 3 squared minus 3. And you will have another time where there's an infinite amount of points. Pick a point to the left and to the right of the vertex. So you have to pick an x value that's smaller than 3 and an x value that's larger than 3. Graph decimals, don't graph decimals, whatever you'd like. I'm going to graph 0, 0. And then 6, 0. Those seem to be kind of easy to graph. You can pick whatever you want, and then you draw on your parabola. So I hope that helps you understand the graphs a little bit better, maybe better from the written notes, or maybe even better from the video.